This is the Basic Nutrition and Nutrition Education module. This is part 3. In part 2, we finished talking about fats, and now we are moving on to vitamins. Vitamins are organic substances the body needs to help regulate and coordinate functions of the body. So when you hear the word organic, it just means something different than what the general public currently relates it to. In biochemistry, it just indicates that the compound contains the element carbon. Non-organic means that the element carbon is not present. There are two forms of vitamins, water-soluble and fat-soluble. Now, water-soluble vitamins include the B vitamins, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, etc., as well as vitamin C. Water-soluble vitamins are not able to be stored in the body and therefore need to be replenished. If they are in excess, they are excreted. Now, fat-soluble vitamins, those are vitamins A, D, E, and K, are stored in the body, and they're stored in the body's fatty tissues. As they are accumulated for longer periods of time, toxicity can be a risk if they are consumed in excess. Now back to the water-soluble vitamins. Due to their water-soluble nature, during lactation, these vitamins shift from maternal blood into breast milk, so intake of these nutrients matters. While all of these nutrients matter for a healthy pregnancy outcome, as well as for successful lactation, there are key water-soluble nutrients to consider. First, folate. So folate is a water-soluble B vitamin that is naturally present in some foods, added to others, and is also available as a dietary supplement. Folate, formerly known as folacin or even vitamin B9, is the generic term for both naturally occurring food folate and folic acid. So folic acid is the form of the vitamin that is used in dietary supplements and fortified foods. Folate's most well-known role is in preventing neural tube defects. Now, neural tube defects result in malformations of the spine, such as spina bifida, malformations of the skull and of the brain, also known as anencephaly. They are the most common major congenital malformations of the central nervous system and result from a failure of the neural tube to close at either the upper or lower end during days 21 to 28 after conception. Women with insufficient folate intakes are at increased risk of giving birth to infants with neural tube defects, although the mechanism responsible for this effect still isn't quite known. 30 years ago, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, began requiring manufacturers to add folic acid to enriched breads, cereals, flours, cornmeals, pastas, rice, and other grain products because the link between inadequate folate intake and neural tube defects was so apparent. Because cereals and grains are widely consumed in the United States, these products have become very important contributors of folic acid to the American diet. The fortification program was projected to increase folic acid intakes by approximately 100 micrograms a day, but the program actually increased mean folic acid intakes in the United States by almost double that. Other countries, including Canada, Costa Rica, Chile, and South Africa, have also established mandatory folic acid fortification programs. Since 1998, when the mandatory folic acid fortification program took effect in the U.S., neural tube defects rates have declined drastically by 25 to 30%. However, there are significant and racial ethnic disparities. Spina bifida and anencephaly rates have declined significantly among Hispanic and non-Hispanic white births in the U.S., but not among black births. Differences in dietary habits and supplemental taking practices could be a factor in these disparities. Additionally, factors other than folate status, such as maternal diabetes, obesity, and intake of other nutrients such as vitamin B12, are believed to affect the risk of neural tube defects. Inadequate maternal folate status has also been associated with low infant birth weight, preterm delivery, and fetal growth retardation. Whereas folic acid supplementation has been shown to lengthen mean gestational age and lower the age of preterm birth. Research also suggests that folic acid, in combination with a multivitamin supplement, helps minimize the risk of congenital heart defects. The major natural sources of dietary folate are legumes, green leafy vegetables, liver, citrus fruits and juices, and whole wheat bread. It is also available in nuts, beans, peas, dairy products, poultry and meat, eggs, seafood, and grains. Spinach, liver, yeast, asparagus, and Brussels sprouts are among the foods with the highest levels of folate. Compared to naturally occurring folate in foods, the synthetic form of the vitamin, folic acid, contained in fortified foods and supplements is almost twice as well absorbed. So, to prevent neural tube defects, all women of childbearing years should consume 400 micrograms per day of folate from fortified foods like cereals and other grains, or from supplements, or from both. Moreover, beginning 1 month before conception, pre-pregnant women should up their intake and consume folate from foods in a varied diet that reach up to 500 micrograms a day. Now, this is the ideal situation, but keep in mind that 50% of all American pregnancies are unplanned. You can see the increased levels recommended for pregnant and lactating women in the chart on the slide. In many cases, female is the general non-pregnant, non-lactating population. Pregnant is pregnant and lactating is lactating. So you can see that a woman who is not pregnant has a recommended intake of 400 micrograms a day. During pregnancy or right before, it goes up to 500 micrograms a day, and during lactation, it goes up even higher to 600 micrograms a day. Many lactating women should also be viewed as pre-pregnant women. Also, the critical time when the neural tube defect is happening is frequently prior to or just barely when a woman discovers her prenatal status. By then, supplementation is tragically ineffective in offering protection against spina bifida or anencephaly. During pregnancy, demands for folate increase due to its role in nucleic acid synthesis. To accommodate this need, the FNB recently increased the folate RDA from 400 micrograms a day for non-pregnant women to 500 milligrams a day during pregnancy. The level of intake might be difficult to achieve through diet alone. And that's why the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists recommends a prenatal vitamin supplement for most pregnant women to ensure that they obtain adequate amounts of folic acid as well as other nutrients. Now let's look at vitamin B12. Vitamin B12, or cobalamin, is a water-soluble vitamin that is naturally present in some foods, added to others, and is available as a dietary supplement and a prescription medication. Vitamin B12 exists in several forms and contains the mineral cobalt. So compounds with vitamin B12 activity are collectively called cobalamins. Vitamin B12 plays a role in making DNA. It also helps keep nerve cells and red blood cells healthy. Naturally found in animal products, vitamin B12 is particularly high in shellfish, organ meats such as liver, some game meats like venison, and fish such as herring, trout, and sardines. In the United States, primary sources of vitamin B12 are mixed dishes containing meat, fish or poultry, milk beverages, and ready-to-eat fortified cereals. Strict vegetarians and vegans are at greater risk than lacto-ovo-vegetarians and non-vegetarians of developing vitamin B12 deficiency because natural food sources of vitamin B12 are primarily limited to animal foods. Fortified breakfast cereals are one of the few sources of vitamin B12 from plants and can be used as a dietary source of vitamin B12 for strict vegetarians and vegans. Since vitamin B12 crosses the placenta during pregnancy and is present in breast milk, exclusively breastfed infants of women who consume no animal products may have very limited resources of vitamin B12. They can develop vitamin B12 deficiency within months of birth. Undetected and untreated vitamin B12 deficiency in infants can result in severe and permanent neurological damage. The American Dietetic Association recommends supplemental vitamin B12 for vegans and lacto-ovo-vegetarians during both pregnancy and lactation to ensure that enough vitamin B12 is transferred prenatally and via human milk to the baby. Pregnant and lactating women who follow strict vegetarian or vegan diets should consult with a pediatrician regarding vitamin B12 supplements for their infants and children. The RDI for vitamin B12 for all women past the age of 14 is 2.4 micrograms per deciliter. During pregnancy, it's 2.6 micrograms per day, and during lactation, it's 2.8 micrograms a day. So vitamin A comes in two forms, and this will be the first fat-soluble vitamin that we'll be discussing. One form of vitamin A is from animals, and those are the retinols. Those are its active form. This type, which is preformed vitamin A, is found in meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and dairy products. The other form is primarily from plants, the most important of which is beta-carotene. I'm sure you've all heard of that nutrient. So the second type, provitamin A, is found in fruits, veggies, and other plant-based products. For example, red peppers are an excellent source. A half cup gives you almost half of what you need for a single day. Deficiencies around the planet in developing countries are well documented, and vitamin A is critical to normal growth and development. Inadequate storage can lead to blindness, anemia, immunodeficiency, while excesses can lead to cognitive disorders. However, in developed countries, vitamin A deficiency is much less common than in underdeveloped countries. So vitamin D is our second fat-soluble vitamin that we'll be talking about. It's naturally present in very few foods, added to others, and is available as a dietary supplement. It is also produced endogenously when ultraviolet rays from sunlight strike the skin and trigger vitamin D synthesis. Now, vitamin D is essential for strong bones because it helps the body use calcium from the diet. Traditionally, vitamin D deficiency has been associated with rickets, a disease in which the bone tissue doesn't properly mineralize, leading to soft bones and skeletal deformities. Increasingly, research is revealing the importance of vitamin D in protecting against a host of additional health problems, such as increased risk of death from cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment in older adults, severe asthma in children, and cancer. Research suggests that vitamin D could play a role in the prevention and treatment of a number of different conditions, including type 1 and type 2 diabetes, hypertension, glucose intolerance, and multiple sclerosis. So unless you count the sun, vitamin D is pretty limited in nature. Fortified food provides most of the vitamin D in the American diet. For example, almost all of the U.S. milk supply is voluntarily fortified. Vitamin D is found in fatty fish such as salmon, tuna, and mackerel, which are among the best sources. It's also found in beef liver, cheese, and egg yolks in smaller amounts. Mushrooms actually do provide some vitamin D, and in some mushrooms that are newly available in stores, the vitamin D content is actually being boosted by exposing these mushrooms to UV light. Almost all of the U.S. milk supply is fortified with 400 international units of vitamin D per quart. However, foods made from milk, like cheese and ice cream, are usually not fortified. Vitamin D is added to many breakfast cereals and to certain brands of orange juice, yogurt, margarine, and soy beverages. But again, always check the label. It should be noted that the vitamin D RDAs are set on the basis of minimal sun exposure and are 600 international units across the board. Pregnant women at increased risk of vitamin D deficiency include those with little exposure to sunlight, vegan diets, and those with darker skin. Some consider a vitamin D deficiency to be a sunlight deficiency, and in the case of vitamin D, low levels of vitamin D during pregnancy can result in the baby experiencing a deficiency as the baby's body accumulates vitamin D prenatally. Now, do infants get enough vitamin D from breast milk? No. Breast milk alone does not provide infants with an adequate amount of vitamin D, even if mothers are taking vitamins containing vitamin D. Shortly after birth, most infants will need an additional source of vitamin D. The American Academy of Pediatrics, or the AAP, recommends that exclusively and partially breastfed infants be supplemented with 400 international units of vitamin D per day, the RDA for this nutrient during infancy, because vitamin D requirements cannot ordinarily be met by human milk alone. Breast milk provides around less than 25 international units a liter to around 78 international units per liter. Again, very, very individualized. The vitamin D content of human milk is related to the mother's vitamin D status. So mothers who supplement with high doses of vitamin D may have correspondingly high levels of this nutrient in their milk. Research is showing vitamin D involvement in more and more areas of concern, and research is really becoming more and more prevalent with this nutrient, vitamin E. So vitamin E is a fat-soluble nutrient found in many foods. In the body, it acts as an antioxidant, helping to protect vitamins A and C, helping to protect red blood cells, and helping to protect essential fatty acids from being destroyed by free radicals. Free radicals are compounds formed when our bodies convert the food we eat into energy. People are also exposed to free radicals in the environment from cigarette smoke, air pollution, and ultraviolet light from the sun, among others. The body also needs vitamin E to boost its immune system so that it can fight off invading bacteria and viruses. It helps to widen blood vessels and keep blood from clotting within them. And in addition, cells use vitamin E to interact with each other and to carry out many important functions. Most individuals probably get enough vitamin E, but not getting the minimum amount can be serious. The body needs fat to absorb vitamin E, so people with certain digestive problems may not get what they need. A deficiency can damage nerves, eyes, and the immune system. The best source of vitamin E is wheat germ oil, although other sources include vegetable oils like wheat germ, sunflower, and safflower oils. These are among the best sources of vitamin E. Corn and soybean oils, as well as margarine and salad dressing, also provide some vitamin E. Nuts are another source. Nuts such as peanuts, hazelnuts, and especially almonds, and seeds like sunflower seeds are also among some pretty solid sources of vitamin E. Green vegetables such as spinach and broccoli provide some vitamin E as well. Now, food companies add vitamin E to some breakfast cereals. They are also added into fruit juices, margarines, and spreads, and other foods as well. And again, to find out which ones have vitamin E, you're going to want to check those product labels. Now, vitamin E is great for skin, hair, and nails. So it's been studied as a way to prevent scars and stretch marks. And it makes sense that it would help with this, but there's not enough peer-based evidence to prove it. And some doctors actually warn against it because in some folks, it can actually trigger an allergic reaction. So infants born very prematurely or with a very low birth weight may actually have a deficiency in this vitamin. Vitamin K is known for its role in blood clotting, and it also influences bone health. There are two forms, one available primarily from leafy greens and one that is synthesized in our GI systems, our gastrointestinal systems, from bacteria. Vitamin K is found in green leafy veggies such as spinach, kale, broccoli, and lettuce. It's also found in vegetable oils. It can be found in certain fruits such as blueberries and figs, and also meat, cheese, eggs, and soybeans. Infants in the United States, born in the United States, are routinely given a vitamin K injection due to low infant stores at birth, per the recommendation of the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And only small amounts of vitamin K are transferred across the placenta during pregnancy. In addition, human breast milk only contains small amounts. The primary gut flora, lactobacillus, found in breastfed babies doesn't synthesize vitamin K. And without sufficient vitamin K, blood just simply doesn't clot, and infants can experience hemorrhagic disease, which, although rare, is life-threatening. So the DRI for vitamin K is, as you can see, for women ages 14 through 18, 75 micrograms per day, which remains consistent whether or not you are non-pregnant, pregnant, or lactating. If you are in the 19 to 50 age range, the amount per day is 90 micrograms, again, regardless of whether you're pregnant or lactating. So another test your knowledge quiz. What nutrient might women who practice strict vegetarianism be low in, and why? So strict vegetarians and vegans are at greater risk than lacto-ovo vegetarians, as well as non-vegetarians, of developing vitamin B12 deficiency because natural food sources of vitamin B12 are limited primarily to animal foods. Do breastfed infants need a vitamin D supplement? So yes, they do. The AAP recommends that exclusively and partially breastfed infants be supplemented with 400 international units of vitamin D per day. The RDA for this nutrient during infancy, because vitamin D requirements cannot ordinarily be met by human milk alone. So minerals are inorganic substances essential for the body. Now, can anyone remember what organic meant? Organic meant with a carbon molecule. So inorganic means without carbon. So these minerals help form bones, teeth, and blood cells. They help regulate the body's fluids and aid in the chemical reactions of cells. Now, the body does not manufacture them, and therefore they need to be obtained through food or supplementation. So first we'll look at calcium, which is the most abundant mineral in the body, and it has an abundance of roles to play as well. So almost all calcium is stored in bones and teeth, where it supports their structure and hardness. The body also needs calcium for muscles to move and for nerves to carry messages between the brain and every body part. In addition, calcium is used to help blood vessels move blood throughout the body and to help release hormones and enzymes that affect almost every function in the human body. Less than 1% of total body calcium is needed to support these mentioned critical metabolic functions. The rest? Well, the remaining 99% is supporting the skeleton. Serum calcium is very tightly regulated, and it really does not fluctuate with changes in dietary intakes. The body uses bone tissue as a reservoir for and source of calcium to maintain constant concentrations of calcium in blood, muscle, and intercellular fluids. So can anyone tell me where calcium is found? So calcium is found in milk, yogurt, and cheese. And these are the main food sources of calcium for the majority of people in the United States. They're also found in veggies such as kale, broccoli, and Chinese cabbage. And these are fairly adequate vegetable sources of calcium. So although spinach may have calcium, that particular calcium is poorly absorbed. Also, fish with soft edible bones that can be eaten, such as canned sardines, canned salmon. These are also decent animal sources of calcium. And then again, a lot of grains, such as bread, pastas, and unfortified cereals, while not rich in calcium, they do add significant amounts of calcium to the diet simply because we eat them often or in large amounts. Calcium is added to some breakfast cereals, fruit juices, soy, and rice beverages, as well as tofu. To find out whether these foods have calcium, again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but you do need to check the product labels. During pregnancy, calcium is needed for the healthy development of a baby's teeth, bones, heart, nerves, and muscles. When a pregnant woman does not consume enough calcium, it is taken from her. It is taken from her bones for the baby. And it is important to consume adequate amounts of calcium daily before, during, and after pregnancy. Women under the age of 25 have additional requirements because they themselves are increasing their own bone content. So the DRI for calcium is fairly consistent, whether again you're non-pregnant, non-lactating, pregnant, or lactating. From the age of 14 through 18, you need around 1,300 milligrams a day. And again, this is just because women at this age are still laying down calcium in their skeleton. And from the ages of 19 to 50, because that process is really slowed down, it's only 1,000 milligrams a day. So a few other notes about calcium. A lactose intolerance and a milk allergy are not the same thing. A lactose intolerance has to do with the body not having enough of the milk enzyme lactase to break down milk sugar lactose. You remember we talked about the OSE symbolizing or signaling that OSE means that there's a sugar involved. Not having enough of the enzyme lactase leads to bloating, diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal discomfort. So for women with lactose intolerance, dairy products with less lactose, such as cheese, yogurt, or milk with added lactase enzyme, can be substituted for regular milk. And it's estimated that almost 25% of U.S. population suffers from some degree of lactose intolerance. And again, as this intolerance is varied, some individuals can still tolerate small amounts, again, individualized, of lactose. Other popular milks, such as almond milk, cashew milk. There's a lot of different milks out there these days. Well, these milks may or may not have sufficient calcium depending on their fortification. Again, read the labels. A milk allergy has to do with another macronutrient entirely, the milk protein. Remember, lactose intolerance concerns the milk sugar. So women with a milk allergy would not be able to consume most products intended for lactose intolerance, as many of them still contain the milk protein that draws the allergic response. So there is increased intestinal absorption during pregnancy, and ingesting vitamin D with calcium assists with maximum absorption and use. And also, please note that calcium is mobilized from the maternal skeleton during breastfeeding, although there is significant recovery afterwards. Breastfeeding actually imparts a protective effect against osteoporosis. And for pregnant women who do not consume milk products, such as, again, due to a milk allergy or other reason, or they also don't consume calcium-fortified foods or beverages, such as those containing soy or some of the nut milks, a calcium as well as a vitamin D supplement may be especially needed. There is a table in your text that lists all sources of calcium. So calcium carbonate, such as found in calcium soft chews or Caltrate or Oscal, Tums, Vivactive, and other supplements as well. That one is most readily absorbed by most people and is also the least costly form of the calcium supplement. Calcium citrate products such as Citracal may also be recommended, but they may be more expensive, and they may require patients to take more tablets to achieve the optimal dosage. Again, to improve absorption, calcium supplements can be divided into 1 or 2 or 3 doses and taken with meals. Vitamin D facilitates absorption of calcium, so whenever possible, recommend a calcium supplement that contains 400 to 800 international units of the vitamin D. The DRIs for iron reflect a non-prenatal woman's need for additional iron due to the demands of menstruation as well as pregnancy and lactation. The male requirements for iron is included to demonstrate the difference just in this one nutrient. So even as men have, generally speaking, increased muscle mass, their requirements are still lower. The IOM, the Institute of Medicine, notes that because the median intake of dietary iron by pregnant women is well below the EAR, pregnant women need iron supplementation. And the Dietary Guidelines for Americans advises that women who are pregnant take an iron supplement when recommended by an obstetrician or other healthcare provider. It adds that low intakes of iron are a public health concern for pregnant women. The ACOG recommend testing to determine whether supplementation is necessary. And the bottom line is that women really should discuss this with their OBs. Healthy, non-anemic prenatal women surrender their iron via the placenta. They also store adequate iron stores to provide for her baby via human milk with sufficient iron for the first several months, again, if they are healthy and not anemic. During lactation, human milk iron levels remain constant because they are pulled from maternal iron stores and are independent of dietary intake. Full-term healthy babies receive enough iron from their mothers in the first third of pregnancy to last for around the first 4 months of life. Although the iron delivered through breast milk is in small amounts, it is satisfactory and highly bioavailable. The iron stores of infants are not depleted until they are around 4 to 6 months of age, or even later. Even still, current recommendations from the AAP standard supplementation of iron may have a negative effect on breastfed infants, as lactoferrin, an important immune compound which we'll talk about later, loses its ability to inhibit the growth of harmful bacteria when it's saturated with exogenous iron, such as from supplementation. So iron status improves when infants, in combination with human milk, begin eating iron-rich foods. For infants who are exclusively breastfed, they consider them to be at increased risk for iron deficiency after 4 months of age. And the AAP recommends giving breastfed infants 1 milligram per kilogram per day of a liquid iron supplement until iron-containing solid foods are introduced at about 6 months of age. When solid foods are added to the baby's diet, they recommend to continue breastfeeding until at least 12 months. For babies who are partially breastfed, well, the iron recommendation remains the same as that for fully breastfed babies if more than half of the daily feedings are from human milk and the child is not receiving iron-containing complementary foods. For formula-fed infants, well, it is recommended that an iron-fortified formula containing from 4 to 12 milligrams of iron be used from birth through the entire first year of life. Premature babies have fewer iron stores, and so they often need additional iron beyond what they receive from breast milk or formula. And like all medications, iron tablets should be kept out of children's reach, because even if iron is only a natural mineral, an accidental overdose can still be life-threatening for children. The RDA for vegetarians are 1.8 times higher than for people who eat meat. This is because, like we mentioned earlier, the heme iron from meat is more bioavailable than non-heme iron from plant-based foods, and meat, poultry, and seafood increase the absorption of non-heme iron. Iron deficiency anemia is most common in populations with low socioeconomic status, multiple gestations, and limited education. For example, the incidence of iron-deficient toddlers in the U.S. are for the Caucasian population, it's 6%. For the Black population, it's 6%. But for the Hispanic population, it's double that at 12%. And 6% of white and Black toddlers aged 1 to 3 years in the U.S. are iron deficient, as compared with 12% of Hispanic toddlers. Now, for prenatal women, the incidence of iron deficiency, again, there's a large disparity. So for the Caucasian population, 13% have iron deficiency anemia. The Black population, that's up at almost 30% at 29.6. And for the Hispanic population, it's 23.6. So again, you can see that, again, there is a big range of incidence. Iron deficiency, including iron deficiency anemia, is more common among children and adolescents in food-insecure households than in food-secure households. Remember that iron in human milk is absorbed efficiently due to the effects of vitamin C as well as lactose. One additional note about iron supplementation. So when recommended, tolerance may be difficult for some women due to heartburn, nausea, constipation, and even diarrhea. To ease discomfort, it can be suggested that women take these tablets at night so they can kind of sleep through their discomfort. Keep in mind that iron tablets, they should not be taken with milk or coffee, as absorption can be decreased. And additional suggestions about adequate or additional fiber may be needed as well, in terms of if they are finding that they're having some difficulty with constipation due to the iron tablets. So sufficient iron intake during the breastfeeding period is necessary to rebuild iron stores. The iron in human milk is absorbed more efficiently than the iron in cow's milk, again primarily due to the presence of vitamin C. Lactose, which also assists in iron absorption, is high in human milk, especially compared to certain infant formulas that contain zero lactose. So maternal intake of iron does not influence breast milk concentration. So now on to zinc. Nutritionally speaking, well, zinc is a pretty busy mineral. He's a pretty busy guy. He is involved in numerous aspects of cellular metabolism. Zinc is required for the catalytic activity of approximately 100 enzymes, and it also plays a role in immune function, protein synthesis, wound healing, DNA synthesis, and cell division. Zinc also supports normal growth and development during pregnancy, childhood, and adolescence, and is required for proper sense of taste and smell. A daily intake of zinc is required to maintain a steady state because the body has no specialized zinc storage system. Pregnant women, particularly those starting their pregnancy with marginal zinc status, are at increased risk of becoming zinc insufficient due, in high part, to high fetal requirements for zinc. Lactation can also deplete maternal zinc stores, and for these reasons, the RDA for zinc is higher for pregnant lactating women than for non-pregnant or non-lactating women. So the RDA for zinc during pregnancy is 12 milligrams per day for ages 14 to 18 years and 11 milligrams per day for ages 19 to 50. And food sources of zinc include meat, some shellfish, oysters, fortified cereals, legumes, nuts, and whole grains. However, bioavailability can be low in vegetarian diets due to the presence of phytate, fiber, and/or calcium that may inhibit zinc absorption. High intakes of supplemental iron may also inhibit zinc absorption when both are taken without food. So the next slide is a test your knowledge slide. What is the most common nutritional deficiency in pregnancy? Iron deficiency anemia. So this concludes part 3 of the basic nutrition and nutrition education module. We just wrapped up talking about vitamins and minerals, and now we are moving on to water.